On my last day of primary school, my mum picked me up and took me to the airport. And so I was flying for the first time alone to London to meet my dad. And because I was an unaccompanied minor, I got special attention and packets of paper and pencils and my meals served first. And then when I went to the tiny bathroom, I discovered I've become a woman. And I already felt pretty sophisticated flying solo, but this was next level. And I wanted to bust out of the cubicle and say, I'm just letting you know I won't be requiring any more accompanying because I'm a bleeding lady. And I've already arrived. There's a Native American Indian saying that befits the moment. When a woman first bleeds, she meets her power. In her bleeding years, she practices her power, and at menopause, she becomes it. So at 30,000 feet, I met my power, but at the time I didn't recognise it, and like everyone else I knew, the relationship I had to my menstrual cycle was this. I knew when I had my period, I knew when I didn't, and I worried when it was late. So what was this power? And what did it have to do with my period? I wouldn't find that out for another 15 years. But when I did, it changed my life. And my hope today is that for some of you, it might start to change the course of yours. So I was 27 when I read The Optimised Woman by Miranda Gray and discovered the bleeding obvious. My menstrual cycle is so much more than just the presence or absence of my period. And the hormonal changes I experience throughout the month are actually 4 phases with strengths and abilities that I can plan for and use. It's called a cycle for a reason. And that is why we're here, because in an era where we dedicate whole industries to finding balance and direction, it's time we started talking about the greatest life hack of them all. Your menstrual cycle is your balance and direction. You have an inner compass, and that is the power of the period. So how does it work? Well, here is a graph of how the female hormones change throughout the month, starring estrogen, progesterone and testosterone. And I'm about there today. So you're going to have about 500 of these in your life, so you've got to get them right. And basically, week 1, the week that you menstruate, is the time for filling your cup. It's the reflective phase, or as I like to call it, 0 fucks. Week 2, your cup is filling fast. It's the dynamic phase, or when I find myself with fucks for days. Week 3 begins with ovulation, and a cup so overflowing, it's known as the expressive phase, or the time I'm most inclined to say, fuck yes, to pretty much anything. And finally, week 4, the most maligned phase of all, is known as the premenstrual phase, when our cup is quickly depleting. We're more inclined to feel like saying, fuck off. And I'll explain later why it's also called the creative phase. So let's start at the beginning. I want you all to close your eyes and put your hands on your belly, nice and low. And imagine yourself slow and tired and on the first day of your period. You can open your eyes. And I can hear you saying, yeah, great, how do we optimise this? And I'm not suggesting that you should spend the whole week on a couch in a onesie because you've got your period. But what I will say is that the revolution, all of them, will be won with rest. And the more you can surrender to this slowness and stillness, the more energy you'll find you have in store for the rest of the whole month, especially in the following Fucks for Days section. So the other thing to do is to really feel it. You're letting go. You're letting go of the possibility of life. That luscious nest you've been working on all month, don't need it anymore. It's going out on the biological verge pickup. And you can also put on the biological verge pickup whatever else you don't need, emotionally, mentally. The reflective menstrual phase is the time to ask yourself, how do I want this next month to be different? What am I going to grow and give life to next? So your priority right now is to make space, to listen, to nurture yourself, And I know it's easy to say and hard to do, so if you need to, ask for help. And if someone asks you to do something in this phase, you can say, yeah. Or you could say, it's just that I would rather be lying on a daybed and trying to find myself at the bottom of a block of dark chocolate. And when you ask me honestly, how many bucks have you got to give? I tell you I've got 0 fucks to give. Whatever it is, it can wait. Maybe next week I'll accommodate, but I'm not making any promises. I got 0 fucks to give. And when you have 0 to few fucks, please do not be guilting yourself for operating on skeleton staff. You can still do whatever it is that you need to do, but who says you need to do it all right now at 100%? So go slowly and with as much self-love as you can, and trust that next week will be different, because when you are a cyclical creature, it always is. And as you have rising estrogen levels, you go from waking up in the morning like this, with 0 fucks, to this, with fucks for days. And damn it, if you are the boss of getting stuff done. This is your dynamic phase, an energetic and outgoing time where you are literally getting ready to drop an egg. So you have some shit to do. And provided you got enough rest last week in the reflective phase, everything now is happening faster. Talking, walking, thinking, making decisions, getting organised. So plan for this phase 2 and get all the things done that you postponed in the reflective phase, and schedule tasks that require a lot of mental and physical energy, capacity. This is the phase that I actually find the most challenging, because I can feel my cup filling so fast that I can barely keep up. And the responsibility of using all of those fucks wisely can be a bit overwhelming, especially with that little kick of testosterone in there. So I remind myself to just be brave, put one foot in front of the other, and to start sowing the seeds that I was saving from last week. Because she who dares, she who dares, she who dares wins herself. Step up with your arms open. Who don't you think you are? You're the queen of your country, not for love or money. Should you stop when you come this far? And then you get into the swing of it. Daring, winning, just being fabulous. You can look at yourself and think, look at me go, I'm just getting shit done, I'm organised, I'm really efficient. Fuck, I'm actually awesome. This is the real me, and if I could just be like this every day, every week, every month, then my life would be perfect. It's a tempting thought when we're so rewarded for this part of ourselves. But I think we all know deep down that it's a pretty tough gig to keep up all month long. So be kind to yourself when this phase fades, and get ready to enjoy the joy and softness of saying fuck yes to the expressive phase, which begins with ovulation, rising progesterone, another boosted top-up shot of estrogen, and you're still riding high on the ass-kicking capabilities of the dynamic phase, but with a loving fade-out. Efficiency with a sexy chaser. More empathy and a greater desire and capacity for connection. This is the time you want to plan family dinners, rehearsals, volunteer work, things where you're helping other people. Sometimes I just put my hand up and say, I've got an overflowing cup, who needs me? But do be aware of the boundaries of this bounty. If you leave your expressive fuck yes self in charge of your diary, she'll promise yourself the rest of the month, who knows what else away. This is not the time to make major commitments like, I could be the president of the PNC. I would love to be your womb surrogate. This is not the time to get a puppy. And if you see a Facebook ad with free kittens, cover your eyes. But while you're in this bounty, enjoy it, because it's wonderful and everything seems wonderful. And sometimes when I can't sleep, when I'm in this phase, I look at my husband and I think to myself, he's such a beautiful man. I just love him. I just want to tell him, Richie, are you awake? Richie, are you awake? I just wanted to tell you how much I love you. And that I'm going to be so good. I'm going to be so good to you. I'm going to be so good. And if you want me to, the world gets and I'll hold you. I'm going to love you like I told you. Every night I'm going to be so good to you. I love you, Richie. Hope you're having a good sleep. And then, after a few days, there's a really subtle shift to, actually, Richie, could you move over? I just need a bit more room. I want to, stretch out further than that. And I can't get comfortable and I'm hot and I hate this blanket. And how the fuck do you get to sleep in 6 seconds? Ah! Enter the creative phase, or the time I'm most inclined to feel like saying, oh. It's also known as PMS. Has anyone heard of this? So I Googled it. And the top response was that PMS is typically defined by a combination of intense tiredness, irritability, depression, weepiness, inability to make decisions, drop in your physical and mental abilities, and a more likelihood of snapping at those around you. Sounds great! And I hear you saying, how the hell does anyone life hack this? This is not a good situation. Here's the thing. Right now, you're getting ready for your biological verge pickup. So you're looking at everything through a super critical lens. Is that shit? Is that shit? Is it all shit? Should I just go to IKEA and start again? There is a frenzy of activity internally going on at this time where you are getting ready to let go. So if you hold on at the same time to the feelings you had last week and the need to be all things to all people, then you will feel like snapping people's heads off. This phase still takes me by surprise sometimes, and I have to remind myself to actually take some time out to be creative. And that's what helps me. When you start getting the feeling of saying, you know it's time for your creative phase. And being creative just means doing whatever is the most you thing you can do. It could be writing, it could be singing, dancing, cooking, gardening, sculpting, crafting. The washing can wait. Before I learned to channel this phase, I wasted it. I'm trying to fix other people, cleaning, skirting boards with a toothbrush, and feeling so put upon when any demands were made of me, even ones like, can you please pass the salt? But now I channel this, and once I became a singer and a writer, I use this phase. I block out 2 days, and if I want to stay up until 3 a.m. writing songs, then I do. And when I don't, I feel really ripped off, like I've missed an opportunity. I only get 12 of these a year. I could have written a hit song. If you take only one thing from this talk, please let it be this. When you're premenstrual, you're not crazy. You are not crazy. You're not crazy. And if you get to know and fall in love with this part of yourself that so much of the world just doesn't understand, then you will be rewarded with silver linings and untold, untapped treasure. And if you learn how to use all of these phases together, your life will just be better. Because the more you understand yourself, the better it is you can do whatever you want to do. So all you have to remember is that, what?
I'm ready.
All you have to remember is that when you've got an empty cup, how many fucks have you got? Yeah. When it's rising, you've got fucks for days. Get busy. When it's overflowing, spread the love, share it around. And when it's starting to decline, take some time, create, explore. Because you're going to have none soon and you have to do it all over again. I like to imagine what the world could be like if it was just normal to think about this as though it was a part of the way we pay attention to ourselves. And I actually think we could be really, really close, but we have to be open about it and talk to our partners at work, to our friends, to our children. When my son was about 3, he pushed open the toilet door at the very moment that I happened to be removing a tampon. That was my instinct too. I wanted to push him out and shut the door, but I didn't. And he said, what is that? And I said, well, you know, it's the blood I told you about that I have every month. This is one of the ways I can collect it. And he said, can I have a look? And again, my instinct was to push him out and shut the door. No. But I said, sure. Anyone else? And he came right in. And he looked at it. And then he looked at me and he said, is it gross? And that was the moment that I realised he was reading me. He was reading my face. How should I understand this? And I said, no, actually it's amazing. My body is strong and healthy, and this is how it lets me know that if I wanted to, I could grow a baby. And he said, oh, that's cool. I said, I know, it is cool. Now hop out, please. I want to imagine a world where girls grow up not just told how to manage the nuts and bolts of menstruation, but are actually educated and empowered to know that their cycles are a strength and a wisdom. And they're not frustrated and overwhelmed at having to fit in all the time. I think that would be pretty cool. So, we've got to talk about it, start paying attention, start using that inner compass, because I really feel that the world is ready and waiting for women and girls and everyone who menstruates to meet their power, to practice it, and to become it. Thank you.